A single document, signed in a government office in Beijing, can quietly shut down car factories on the other side of the world. No army. No missiles. No warning. Just a new rule, about a handful of metals, that almost no one has ever heard of. In 2025, when China tightened its grip on these materials, car makers in America and Europe began to panic. Some slowed their production lines. A few shut down factories entirely. Because it turns out, the modern world is built on 17 obscure elements, and one country controls almost the entire supply. This is not really a story about tariffs, or trade deals, or headlines. It is the story of the real leverage, hiding underneath all of them. The quiet weapon, behind the trade war. Welcome to the money trail. Let us follow it. If this is your first time here, welcome. This channel is about one thing: connecting the dots between money, power, and the decisions that shape your world. No jargon. No agenda. Just clear research-backed analysis that tells you the story behind the money. Now let us get into it. First, what exactly are we talking about? They are called rare earth elements. 17 metals with strange, unfamiliar names. Neodymium, dysprosium, terbium, samarium. You will never see them on a shelf. But they are everywhere in your life. They are inside your phone, making it vibrate. Inside the tiny, powerful magnets that spin electric car motors and wind turbines. Inside hard drives, headphones, missiles, fighter jets, and submarines. They help color the very screen you are watching this on. They sharpen surgical lasers and power the scanners in hospitals. Consider a single modern fighter jet. It can contain hundreds of kilograms of rare earth materials. A single submarine, several tons. These metals are not a luxury. For a modern economy and a modern military, they are a necessity. Take them away, and much of modern life simply stops. And here is the first surprise. Despite the name, rare earths are not actually that rare. They are scattered in the ground all over the planet. The difficulty is not finding them. It is refining them. Turning that raw rock into pure, usable metal is dirty, toxic, and fantastically complex. It produces rivers of chemical waste and even traces of radioactive material. And decades ago, most of the world quietly decided it simply was not worth the mess. One country was willing to do the dirty work: China. And today, its grip on this industry is almost total. According to the International Energy Agency, China mines around 60% of the world's rare earths. But mining is not where the real power lies. When it comes to refining them, the difficult, crucial step, China controls more than 90%. And the finished magnets that nearly everything depends on. China makes the overwhelming majority of those too. So almost every electric car, wind turbine, smartphone, and guided missile on Earth contains a piece of something that most likely passed through China first. It is one of the most concentrated choke points in the entire global economy. Oil, at least, comes from many countries. This comes from essentially one. And in 2025, China decided to use it. In April of 2025, Beijing introduced export controls on 7 of these rare earth elements. Overnight, shipments slowed to a trickle. Within weeks, manufacturers thousands of miles away felt it. Car makers in the United States and Europe scrambled for supply. Some cut production. A few idled their factories completely. In some cases, assembly lines fell silent for want of a single component smaller than a coin. Billion-dollar factories, held hostage by a magnet. Then, in October, China went further than ever before. It announced that any product, made anywhere in the world, containing even 0.1% of Chinese rare earths, would need a license from Beijing to be sold. Read that again. A company in Germany, using Chinese materials, selling to a customer in Japan, would now need permission from China. A rule written in Beijing, reaching into a factory in Detroit, or Munich, or Seoul. It was an attempt to extend China's control across the entire planet. And it was not only rare earths. China also tightened its grip on other critical materials, including the gallium and germanium used to build the world's computer chips. The International Energy Agency spelled out what was truly at stake. $6.5 trillion. That is not the value of the metals themselves. That is the value of the industries that depend on them. Cars, electronics, renewable energy, defense. All of it, resting on a supply that one country controls. Which raises the obvious question. How did one country ever gain this much power over the rest of the world? Here is what most people do not realize. It was not always this way. Decades ago, it was America that led the world in rare earths. A single mine in California once supplied much of the planet. But the work was expensive, and dirty, and heavily regulated. China offered to do it cheaper. Far cheaper. One by one, Western mines and refineries closed, unable to compete. The industry, and the power that came with it, quietly drained eastward. By the time the world understood what it had given away, it was already gone. And China did not stumble into this. It did it deliberately. Back in the 1990s, one of China's most powerful leaders reportedly said, "The Middle East has oil. China has rare earths." It was not a throwaway line. It was a strategy. China invested for decades. It trained the scientists, built the refineries, and mastered the chemistry, while much of the world looked away. And now, it holds the switch. Follow the money, and the strategy becomes clear. This is leverage. Perhaps the most powerful economic leverage on Earth. Notice the timing. When trade tensions rise, China tightens the controls. When it wants to strike a deal, it eases them. In late 2025, after a meeting between the American and Chinese leaders, China agreed to pause its harshest new restrictions for 1 year. A gesture of goodwill. And a quiet reminder of exactly who holds the switch. Then, in the summer of 2026, it tightened again. Targeting 10 American companies in June, and 14 European ones in July. On, off, on, off. Each move, a message without words. We can slow your factories, whenever we choose. It is a form of power older than money itself. If you control what others cannot live without, you do not need to raise your voice. And there is a sharper edge still. The very weapons a nation would need in a conflict, the jets, the missiles, the guidance systems, depend on magnets that a rival controls. It is a vulnerability sitting at the very heart of national security. The West has finally woken up to the danger. The United States has poured money into building its own supply. Nearly $4 billion in financing, and new partnerships with Australia, Japan, Brazil, and others. Fresh mines. New magnet factories. A race to escape the choke point. Governments are now treating these metals the way they once treated oil. Building national stockpiles. Funding new mines from Australia to Africa. Some are even looking to the deep ocean floor, where these metals lie scattered across the seabed. There is even talk of guaranteed prices, to keep Western mines alive long enough to matter. But here is the hard truth. You cannot build a rare earth industry overnight. A mine is not a switch you can flip. It must be found, tested, approved, dug, and then connected to refineries that, across much of the world, do not yet exist. A new mine can take a decade to open. A refining plant, years more. And the expertise China spent 30 years perfecting cannot simply be copied in a season. For now, the dependence remains very real. Now, let us be fair about the other side. China's grip is powerful, but it is not permanent. New supply is slowly coming online beyond its borders. Alliances are forming. And China itself has something to lose. It needs customers to buy these metals, just as much as they need to sell them. A choke point only works if you do not squeeze so hard that the world finds another road. So what does all of this mean for you? Follow the money, and the lesson is unsettlingly simple. The device in your pocket. The car in your driveway. The power in your walls. The weapons that defend your country. All of them quietly depend on a supply chain that one nation controls. It is an extraordinary thing to sit at the center of the global economy and realize how few hands hold its foundations. The trade wars you read about, the tariffs, the tensions, the sudden deals, are often just the surface. Underneath them runs a deeper contest. A struggle over who controls the raw materials of the future. And in that contest, for now, one side holds a remarkable advantage. We are used to thinking of power in terms of armies, or currencies, or technology. But in the end, power often comes down to something far more basic. Who controls the physical stuff that everything else is made from? So where does this leave us? Not with a prediction, but with a new way to read the news. The next time you hear about a trade deal, or a sudden truce between great powers, look beneath the headline. Ask what is really being traded. Ask who controls the things that cannot easily be replaced. We have followed the money behind tariffs, and debt, and gold. This is that same story, told through metal. The nation that controls the materials, controls the future. It always has. From salt, to coal, to oil, and now, to 17 quiet metals in the ground. That is the money trail behind the metals that run the modern world. And now you have followed it. If this helped you see the power behind the headlines, hit subscribe. Because every week, we follow a new trail. And there is always another trail waiting to be uncovered. I am the Money Trail. See you next week.